So, a YouTuber that I actually have watched for a while and made a video on the person who scammed me, Raver Neon Light, has found my channel and made a video about it actually. And I actually quite enjoyed this. I think it gave me some insight on how to better word my points, as well as just being interesting to see someone that I've actually looked up to as a commentary and furry channel um, talk about their opinions on my channel. So I just want to state right off the bat, I have no ill will toward Nick, quite the opposite. And if you are someone who supports my channel, please do not go harass him or anyone in his comments. Again, I greatly appreciate this video and the criticism given to me and my ideologies. I did ask him permission to make a response to this, and he said that he is okay with that, but does not want to start a theology or religious debate, which is totally fine. I more just wanted to clarify some things that I think were unintentionally misrepresented about my points, or accept some criticisms that he has given me and how I intend to move forward with those. So let's just get into it. I will be cropping some of the video just for time's sake because it's quite long, but it'll be linked down below. I highly recommend you go watch it.
So today I'll be talking about my thoughts in regards to Godless Snowshoe, a trans-masked furry who previously did animation meme content and made a second channel talking about this. So anti-theism, in their words, is someone who believes that religion is inherently harmful, and while they do not condone marginalizing or shaming those who practice religion, I wanted to discuss some of their takes and my overall thoughts on this channel because some of their wording might imply otherwise.
I will say, if I came across at any point as shaming religious people, that has not been my intention. There are religious people who I will shame for ridiculous beliefs, like Ken Ham or Kent Hovind, but it is not due to them being religious. It is due to them indoctrinating children, preaching ideas like the dinosaurs lived with humans, homophobia, transphobia, etc., which I acknowledge, even within America and evangelicals, is a very small minority. I feel like I tried to clear this up in my Do We Need Religion video. However, it was more so responding to a specific comment that I received or comment thread. So after rewatching that video, I do feel I was a bit inadequate in explaining how I feel about that. Just from my personal experience as a Native person, I do think there are areas that religion can and should stay intact. However, I personally think it would be ideal, not that it should be necessarily even encouraged beyond someone's own personal platform, but ideal, in an ideal world, that those spiritual and religious traditions would be taught as this is a story that was important to us in the past and as such should be important to us now. It is not literal, however, that does not mean it is not important. That being said, people who do not teach it in that way do not garner any disrespect from me, at least not intentionally. I do not have any issue with that. My grandmother, who is Cherokee, was probably the most spiritual person I know, and my grandpa, who is also Cherokee, was a little bit spiritual, but much more neutral. So I have seen how these things can impact culture, and my mother is probably just as much of an anti-theist as I am, despite being very aware and active in our culture. So I would like to make it clear, in a more broad sense than just responding to that comment, that I do not even support people criticizing religion in terms of going after someone. I think it should stay on your own platform, and if people choose to come watch it, they should do so. And of course, there are differing opinions to that when it comes to public figures. For example, I will criticize Ray Comfort, I will criticize Greg Locke, but they are public figures who are spouting ideas like autistic children are possessed or God cures depression, and that is more of me having an issue with their own personal shit than it is me having an issue with religion, even if those ideas stem from religion. So beyond people who are public figures and putting themselves out there to be criticized, I do not support anyone going on anyone else's page and saying shit about their religion, because they have a choice to look at my page and to comment and to end conversations that they may start, and I will respect that. But within my own page, I am going to be blunt about what I think religion is, which is not a good thing in my opinion. Because again, they are completely within their right to not look at my page, and I will not give them shit for that.
I think before I get into this video, I do want to preface my intentions. I have absolutely no issue with this channel or even the fact that it's inherently an anti-religion podcast. I think freedom of speech is incredibly important, so the fact that people can at least talk about their subjective experiences is very important, and I think that there's actually a certain time and place for these kinds of things, of being critical of religious, political, and in academic settings, even scientific knowledge. It's really the only way that we can progress as a society.
Just gonna give a little input here so YouTube doesn't think that I'm just stealing this person's content, because you got to do that with response videos. But I really appreciate this mindset. There are so many people who think that you cannot criticize religion, period. And while I think you shouldn't go after people for their religion, I appreciate the mindset that it is okay to criticize it. And yeah, I just wanted to break up the video a bit there, but I definitely really respect people with this mindset regardless of their religious background.
I want to offer some critiques from a background in media mass communication because a channel like this is going to have several glaring obstacles that will prove to either be this channel's strengths while overcoming them or its inevitable deactivation. But without further ado, let's get into it. So currently they have 4 videos speaking on the subject about their ideologies and faults that they see with religious faiths. The initial first is their anti-theism video, with the other 3 trying to be more clarification. I want to start with the fact that YouTubers don't owe anyone any certain type of tone. You don't have to sound overly empathetic to make a successful YouTube channel. I mean, we've even seen time and time again people who are intentionally antagonistic to bring in outraged people, even if the goal is just to introduce them to the idea or even just get views off the situation. This does not really seem to be the goal for this channel. He does seem genuinely trying to explain these core beliefs, but when we do get more pointed takes, it makes the audience feel like this is in some way made to be a hit piece on the subject, especially several snide remarks that are tossed in because it's very clear that he does find a sardonic humor in some of the responses that argue with him.
I do very much appreciate that he is acknowledging that I am not intentionally being antagonistic. I more so just don't care if people perceive me as antagonistic. Personally, I have heard so many skeptic YouTubers that I look up to heavily getting messages from people saying that they've helped them out of toxic religions, helped them find either more moderate religions or leave religion altogether. And that's something that I feel extremely passionately about and have spoken about within non-commentary based accounts. But it's something I want to be a part of and maybe give a little bit of variety, I guess, to the skeptic community of something, both of being an anti-theist, really with Godless Cranium being the only other anti-theist that labels themselves as such that I'm aware of, like, with any presence, as well as just not being someone who sits in front of a camera in a studio with a little thing in the corner, of being a furry, potentially doing speed paints in the background, which Telltale has done, but does more so in a kind of graphics way than a art-focused way. And I really personally, the goals for my channel isn't even to stop people from being religious. It's just to do basically what you said, present anti-theism in a way that is not intentionally antagonistic, and let people see that anti-theism is not what they think it is. So many people think anti-theism is the belief that we should ban or restrict the practice of religion, which I have never come across an anti-theist who thinks as such. So I guess also one of my goals is to explain what anti-theism is to both atheists and religious people who kind of equally do not understand what it is. And I more so just don't care if I come across as antagonistic to people, because I feel like it's quite clear that that's not my intention beyond having somewhat dry humor. So I do appreciate that it's, I guess, visible that my goal is not to antagonize or criticize religious individuals, but the concept of religion as a whole.
This person continually and consistently presents that their main issue with religion is it being treated as though it's a fact. This mainly can pertain to Western culture that is heavily centered in religious ideals being placed at the forefront of specific laws that are passed and teachings of historical context. If they do have any instances in which this does pertain to other countries and how they treat those, it certainly has not been presented as of yet.
I actually do have an example of this. There is an extremist Buddhist militia in Myanmar, Burma. They have essentially been doing what human rights offices are calling ethnic cleansing and creating a refugee and Muslim displacement crisis. They have organized to create anti-Muslim laws in the nation's legislature, as well as trying to enforce Buddhist principles, also again within the country's legislature. They are actively called Buddhist nationalists, aligning with Christian nationalists in America with their own faith. There are exceptions with Buddhists who have been harboring refugees from these Muslim groups that have had their mosques burned down, their homes burned down, have been displaced and kicked out, have been killed, as well as Buddhist monks performing interfaith marriages for people who are not subscribing to this. So, of course, it's not universal, but it aligns with the Christian nationalism that is very prominent in America, where not all Christians subscribe to it, but the ones who do are extremely violent and loud, but to an extreme much more dramatic than in America, as they are quite literally burning down mosques, killing people, and actively presenting both Buddhist teachings and anti-Muslim sentiments in government. Now, I will say, I dislike Islam a lot more than I dislike Buddhism. However, this is a very prominent example of nationalism, religious nationalism, Zionism, and just extremism in other religions beyond Western religions. And it's not talked about as much in the West because it's not something we're familiar with, but it is still very prominent and still very much an issue and needs to be addressed. Now, as far as I'm aware, Nix was not aware of this, so this is not me criticizing him, it's just me presenting an example, as he asked for, of nationalism, violence, and extremism in other religions, as well as them forcing themselves into government.
But if you want to argue that religion doesn't have a place in schools, I think that has a much more solid argument than religion shouldn't be taught as fact to its followers, and only read as though it's a self-acknowledged fairy tale.
In this house, you will drink only agnostic beverages.
Personally, do not think Nick was intentionally misconstruing my point here. I think it was an issue of me presenting it poorly. However, I think he's referring to my Do We Need Religion video, where I say that ethnic religions and spiritualities can be taught in a way of not taking the God or spirit aspect of it literally, but as a this was important to people in our past and should be important to us too as a tradition, but is not literally true. I acknowledge the vast majority of religious people in pretty much every religion do genuinely believe what they are saying, and it would only make sense for them to present it as true if they believe it's true. My position was more that in my case with native spirituality or with atheistic Jews or other ethno-religions that I may be unaware of, that it does not have to be presented as literal. Not that that's necessarily incorrect or correct to present it as literal or not. I was not necessarily making a moral judgment on which one was the right way to go, as that is a much more nuanced issue than things like Christianity, Islam, even Buddhism, Sikhism, Jainism, whatever. More so that in instances where religion is intertwined and unchangeable from culture, that it's okay and equally as effective to teach it as a fictional but important story as it is to lie and teach it as literal. I'm not saying that these people need to teach it as an important fictional story. I'm not saying that all religious people acknowledge it's a fairy tale, because they don't. And I don't expect them to, because you can't just force yourself to not believe something. I can't force myself to believe in God the same way that they can't force themselves not to. And I would expect people to teach it as true if they believe it's true. However, I do think it's an issue, regardless, teaching ideologies to children beyond things like the Golden Rule, regardless of if you're an atheist or a religious person. I don't think political or religious ideology should be taught to small children. It's indoctrination, and it should be reserved until they are old enough to make their own judgments on it, and it should always be presented as something to be skeptical of, regardless of if you're religious or not. I grew up non-religious, but I don't even say I grew up atheist. I'd say I grew up secular, as in I was exposed to religion as a concept, and I was never taught anything positive or negative about it. It just existed, it was there, it wasn't something I was taught as true or false. I live in the South, it was there, I was never taught it as true. We just didn't talk about it, and whenever I got older and became more interested in it, we did talk about it. And I think that's generally the way it should be, regardless of if the parents are religious or not. You should let a child be a child, and if they become interested in religion, or once they're old enough to understand and do their own research, then present it to them. But small children should not be growing up with the idea, calling people Christian children, Muslim children. There are no Christian or Muslim children. There are children who have been taught things by their parents and are 3 years old and believe whatever their parents say. There are no genuinely religious children. There are indoctrinated children. I think we should respect the person and not the beliefs. Beliefs earn respect, opinions earn respect through credibility and positive impact, which I do not think Christianity has had either of.
It is very difficult to make glaring overgeneralizations, making pretty much half-informed takes on religions. And while the world statistically is becoming more secular in favor of just generally being spiritual, it's imperative to make mention that religions have evolved over time, even if they do keep basic principles. There's not really any one specific way to categorize a singular religion. Even if you grew up learning it, someone across the world may have learned an alternate version or have thousands of renditions.
I definitely agree with this, and I think I did present my position poorly on this. I left a comment in response to someone about this. I do not expect him to have gone through every comment, so this is not me saying anything negative about him, just me reiterating my point that I left in another comment, where someone said, people who are bigoted are not true Christians, and this is the no true Scotsman fallacy. The Bible is essentially, again, referencing Christianity because that's just what we're talking about in this instance. The Bible is wishy-washy as fuck. It says one thing in one chapter and the opposite in the next. And really, people don't take their morality from the Bible. They blame the Bible for their existing morality. Because the Bible can say whatever you want it to say because it's so contradictory. There's an entire book called 144 Contradictions in the Bible. So I acknowledge that there really isn't a true Christianity. There are so many versions of the Bible. There are so many different ways the Bible is interpreted. There are so many different parts of the Bible that people consider abolished and people don't. So my intention wasn't necessarily to say if you don't follow the Bible to a T, you are not actually a Christian. It was more so to say pretty much all of the things exclusive to Christianity are not positive things. That all of them can be achieved secularly and therefore more intellectually honest. I acknowledge Christianity has done good things, but the bad things, in my opinion, outweigh the good. And the good things are and have been equally achieved secularly and generally had better results, like the statistics I showed in my original video. They are more consistent and they are more extreme in their positive effects. I will admit that was worded poorly and came across as I don't think Christianity has ever done anything good, but I also don't think Christianity has any merit when it comes to truth or morality, because the morality presented in the Bible is abhorrent. And the truth of the Bible is in direct contradiction to science, regardless of how you interpret Genesis. So even taking away the morality aspect, I don't think Christianity or religion as a whole has earned the level of respect that something scientific or even just logical has, because it has no credibility. Now, that doesn't mean I don't think you should disrespect the person. I think it's an issue of people are sentient and have feelings and beliefs, and they cannot control those things in entirety, and I think they deserve respect. But when it comes to an idea, even if it's not religious, whether it's political, religious, social issues, whatever, in my opinion, opinions need to earn their respect, and people get their respect just by being people. And from my admittedly subjective viewpoint, I do not think religion has earned that respect, because I don't think it's had an overall positive impact, and I don't think it overall has any credibility. That doesn't mean that there aren't more nuances to it than that, but I think generally, in the bigger picture, it has not had a positive effect.
It's putting religions against one another, like Buddhism in comparison to Jainism, and saying one is objectively better because one doesn't explicitly disavow abortion isn't really going to sparkle with a lot of people. I will at least admit the fact that I do appreciate that they are making an effort to understand and learn about different religions and how they're practiced, and kind of inform the audience on things that we might not be aware of. However, I feel like that very quickly falls apart when by the end of it, it's summed up in, well, actually, none of this matters because none of it can be proven in the first place, and belief without proof is bad.
I definitely did not mean for it to come off as it is an objective fact that these religions are ranked in a way of which they are harmful. I do not believe in objective morality. I think morality is subjective to the creatures that perceive it and the way that they function. It is an evolutionary trait that has been shown in animals other than just humans. So I don't believe in objective morality, which means that I don't think that these are objectively the most or least harmful religions. I think, in my personal sense of morality, that Jainism is a good and generally harmless religion. But I do think that there are parts of it that are more harmful than Buddhism, and there are parts of Buddhism that are more harmful than Jainism. I will admit this is probably the only part of the video that frustrated me, is him saying that I think this is objective. I do not think it is objective. I think it is my opinion, and I think that religions that have more restrictions on your freedoms are the more harmful religions, which is why I think Jehovah's Witnesses and Mormons are insurmountably more harmful than Methodists, even if they're both Christians. And I will say, how much I dislike a religion isn't necessarily how much I would quote-unquote rank it as being bad. I dislike witchcraft and Wicca way more than I dislike Jainism. I think, I don't know how to say this without being condescending. If there are any people who are into witchcraft in my comments, I really do not mean this to be condescending. I just cannot think of better wording. I think it's silly. I almost think it's comedic. It seems like a child playing to me. And I definitely think it's less harmful than Buddhism because it presents almost no rules for what you are allowed or not allowed to do beyond, like, don't be violent. So I think it's less harmful than Buddhism, but I definitely dislike it more heavily than Buddhism. So I'm not necessarily basing it on my opinion of the religion, because I dislike witchcraft way more than I dislike Buddhism or Jainism. I think it is, quite frankly, ridiculous and almost funny. And I think Jainism has worse things that it expects you to do that are more ridiculous and more harmful than something that I personally just think is silly. And these are not things that I think are objective. I don't think it's an objective fact that Jainism is worse than Buddhism. I think, personally, as someone who supports abortion rights, that Jainism has some harmful and misogynistic tenets to it. That does not mean I think Jainism is objectively worse. It's an opinion. And I just really want to hammer home that I do not think this is objective. It is subjective. It is my opinion. I don't even believe in objective morality.
However, regardless of this, I maintain the issues of Buddhism that I do with Jainism because, again, belief without proof. Overall, personally, I maintain that both of these religions and religions with similarities to them are much less harmful than basically monotheistic religions. I still think there are things that are below them in terms of harmfulness, again, like Wicca or just general spirituality, etc., things of that sort, things that are less organized and don't have exact rules. Although, again, I still don't think those things are positive, as they are, again, maintaining belief without proof.
And try and see if there's a better way you can exemplify their differences while not claiming one is better or worse, unless you can provide veritable impacts that one religion has done. It is the difference between saying Christianity made dinosaurs go away and Christianity is the main source cited for human creation, which is directly negated by the existence of evolution. It is also just the back and forth of using certainties and uncertainties that weakens a lot of arguments. It's small sentiments like saying if you are religious, you are with certainty limited on what you can and cannot do.
It's not preventing them from living their life to the fullest. Well, I can't say for certain. It depends on the religion if it's preventing you from living your life to the fullest. For religions with the concept of heaven and hell, or religions with the concept of karma, I would argue it is preventing them from doing it, because it's limiting the experiences you're allowed to partake in, many of which are arbitrary. I mean, obviously there's some good ones in there, like the Bible says don't kill people, rather hypocritically considering how many people God kills in the Bible, but
In specific instance of gaining sobriety with aid of religion, if you were to lose faith at any point in time after becoming sober, you're intrinsically just going to lose your reason for being sober and just fall back into those habits. Negating the fact that while religion can help someone out of a bad place, they have the ability to gauge how much of their ambitions are guided by it, and that can change over time. It's like if your parents want you to go to college your whole life, you can gain that goal on your own, even if at some point they don't care if you go or not. You can adjust how much their opinions dictate your decisions because you've grown to adopt those habits yourself.
I definitely agree that it is not a universal issue, that whenever becoming sober or reformed or whatever because of religion, that losing that faith doesn't always mean that you're going to relapse or backslide. However, the 12-step program in AA, for example, which was my example given, I just cut out the clip that I talked about myself because it was rather long, has a 5 to 10% success rate with 1 in 15 people staying and even becoming sober. it has been shown that religious therapies and religious counseling and such is generally not effective. And that is an issue I have with people seeking things like the 12-step program, is that they do not work. I'm sure there are religious rehabs and therapies and such that do work, and I'm sure there are plenty of people who stayed sober after losing their faith, but it is a statistical fact that these programs do not work.
But it's basically the argument of what's more important, the exact definition of what the Bible says or what most religious teachings are talking about in context of them being written hundreds, if not thousands of years ago, or what we actually gain from them current day.
Personally, I think these are just two completely different issues. I think what we gain from it current day is talking about how it affects society. And when talking about people inaccurately following it or the legitimacies of their belief, I think it's more a debate of the truth of it, of if you do not think all of this book written by God is true, why do you follow it? Why do you believe this God exists if you don't believe the book is correct? I think we can talk about both, and I think the context really just depends on what you're debating. However, asking people who are religious why they follow certain parts of their holy book and not others can spark skepticism and just critical thinking of, yeah, why do I believe in this when I don't believe in the thing that's supposedly all-knowing, omnipotent, written by God and infallible, but I don't actually follow this thing? Why do I cherry pick it? Why do I think this part is morally bad, even though I think my morality comes from this? I think really one is just to spark skepticism and conversation, and the other is to talk about the literal impacts religion has on the world. And I definitely agree, I clipped this part out just because it was very long, but you can go watch the video, that where you grew up, your social economic status, your parents' beliefs definitely affect how you practice that religion. I just personally think that they're two separate issues that need to be addressed, rather than, well, it doesn't matter what the religious book actually says, it just matters how people act. I'm not entirely sure if that's what you meant or not, but regardless, I do think that asking people why they cherry pick and asking people why this part of the Bible is true and not that part can just spark skepticism and critical thinking, which is why I ask questions like that, because it does make people think about the legitimacy of their holy book.
Realizing some people just enjoy religion the same way some enjoy astrology. Religion can't be proven, but who's to say God didn't make atoms and scientific discoveries possible?
God creates dinosaurs. God destroys dinosaurs. God creates man. Man destroys God. Man creates dinosaurs.
Well, for one, I do hold things as an issue with astrology, assuming you genuinely believe in it and aren't just like, haha, funny horoscope. But also, it's an issue of Occam's razor. It's making more assumptions than assuming God, to assume God did it, than that it happened naturally. For example, I could see a flower outside. Would it be more rational for me to believe God placed it there right before I walked up and it grew in an instant? Or that it grew over the course of weeks and the seeds went there naturally and it rained and the flower grew? It would make a lot more sense for the second one, because Occam's razor states that the most simple belief that makes the least assumptions is generally the most logical conclusion to come to. Now, there's exceptions to that when something is proven to not be the most logical conclusion to come to, but when there's no proof in either way, or it's something unprovable, it's generally the most logical position to take, that the simple one is the correct one. The thing that you're talking about is basically called deism, a non-personal God who created everything just the way it is in the natural world. And this really isn't provable or unprovable, so I really just think it's, my only issue with it is that it is making unnecessary assumptions, but overall I really do not have a strong opinion on deism.
Brother. Uh-oh, the jilted lover returns. Listen, I just wanted to let you know you don't have to worry about me trying to be your friend anymore. I don't? Look, maybe us Mormons do believe in crazy stories that make absolutely no sense, and maybe Joseph Smith did make it all up, but I have a great life and a great family, and I have the Book of Mormon to thank for that. The truth is, I don't care if Joseph Smith made it all up, because what the church teaches now is loving your family, being nice, and helping people. And even though people in this town might think that's stupid, I still choose to believe in it. All I ever did was try to be your friend, Stan. But you're so high and mighty you couldn't look past my religion and just be my friend back. You got a lot of growing up to do, buddy. Suck my balls.
Okay, so I adore South Park. I have seen every single episode of South Park. My dog is named Elder Price after their musical. But I think this was a poor use of this clip personally, as Mormonism fits the Bite model to a T of being a cult. The way this character is represented throughout the full episode, and also in this scenario, really, without full context, is indoctrinated. And that you should respect his right to do that and not judge him for it, but that he is indoctrinated, as well as his family. And I think this is remedied somewhat in their musical that is based off of this episode and actually has almost a reprise of one of the songs in this episode, but showing that the Book of Mormon is harmful, has harmful teachings, and gives people a cult personality where they believe that they are only allowed to be happy because they have the religion, and if they are unhappy, they are betraying, I can't remember what they call God. Okay, looked it up, and it's Elohim. I'm just going to insert some clips in the musical, partially just because I adore it, and partially because I think it shows kind of an updated view of how Trey and Matt perceive Mormonism, and that this is not exactly the best example for this situation, personally. This is not me throwing shade at Trey or Matt, nor at Nick. It's just, I am way too interested in Mormonism for someone who's only ever been friends with, or even known, one Mormon.
Then you only got yourself to blame. You didn't pretend hard enough. Imagine that your brain was made of tiny boxes, and find the box that's gay and crush it! Okay?
No, I'm not having gay thoughts.
All right! It worked! Hey! Turn it on! Turn it on! Turn it off like the light switch just go click. What a cool little Mormon trick.
Ever since I was a child, I tried to be the best. So what happened? My family and friends all said I was blessed. So what happened? It was supposed to be all so exciting, to be teaching of Christ across the sea. But I allowed my faith to be shaken. Oh, what's the matter with me? I've always longed to help the needy, to do the things I never dared. This was the time for me to step up. So then why was I so scared? A warlord who shoots people in the face. What's so scary about that? I must trust that my Lord is mightier and always has my back. Now I must be completely devout. I can't have even one shred of doubt. I believe.
But it's very clear to me that there are certain people that they just don't want to engage with on their content. And while everyone is entitled to monitor their own spaces, some part of it just feels hypocritical, I guess, denouncing religion on one half as a whole, but also shunning certain people from interacting with your content. Like there's something there. It's not hypocrisy, but it's a word. There's a word for what I'm kind of thinking on this. I don't know if you have a word for what I'm kind of feeling in this situation, definitely put it in the comments, because I can't think of a word that kind of encapsulates that feeling. It's not hypocrisy though, but it is something.
So this is referencing me making a post on my main account that says, if you use xenogenders, I do not want to interact with you. The reason that I say this is because I have encountered a total of one respectful, civil, and well-cited xenogender user. I have been talking about my opinions against xenogenders online for 2 years, and all I have received from these people is death threats, buzzwords, and whenever asking for sources, just completely random things like cards, the LGBTQ wiki, things that have absolutely no credibility. So while I am open to engaging with respectful and smart xenogender users, I have no desire to waste time debating with people who go, "You're transphobic," to these people that I don't even believe are trans, and then proceed to insult me, and then whenever I ask for sources, say, essentially, I don't need sources, it's just how I feel. Anecdote, that does not align with science. So I just really don't have a desire to interact with these people. But again, if they have real sources, or if they are respectful, I am okay with interacting with them. It's just I really don't have the time or energy for people who have no desire to have a real conversation, but just want to call me buzzwords because I don't agree with them.
But it is something. Depending on the longevity and size of this channel, everyone from heavily religious people to aggressively pro-life or even just anti-furries will clamor to this channel as an outlet to vent their distaste on someone simply questioning their belief system. And so I don't really blame this channel if that pressure were ever to become too much and comments were just disabled. But these really are just some thoughts I had with this channel, its concept, and some issues. I think a lot of it comes from a very interesting place, even if I disagree with a portion of it. So this entire video can be taken with a grain of salt, but I do hope that they are able to find what they would consider success, even if it's just a place to vent their frustrations with religion. Like, who cares? If this channel interests you, I really do encourage you to go chat about your opinions on their takes. This channel and its adversaries feel like it's going to be a wild hodgepodge of people using facts to refute subjective opinions and subjective opinions to refute facts. It is literally a tale as old as time, and this is a conversation that has been had for hundreds of years, but only now are you able to do it and not actually get physically hung, which is kind of neat. But overall, I wish this creator the best, and I hope that everyone can offer a respectful criticism of one another, and I think it's interesting just to like get your opinions out there and talk with one another and see where other people's hearts kind of lie.
So I definitely appreciate this video and will consider that wording, especially at the beginning. And I know Nick said that he did not want to start a back and forth about religion, which I totally respect. I more just wanted to clarify points that I made that I think were poorly communicated, as well as just acknowledge this video because I think it was very well made and I actually quite enjoyed it. I definitely like hearing people's takes whenever they are well substantiated and properly expressed, as well as people who are just open to hearing the other side. Like I said, I did leave out some portions of the video just because this video would take forever if I didn't. So please, please, please go watch the original. It's linked in the description. In regards to the xenogender thing, I will be making a video about that, just not for a while because I want to gather more sources than I have right now. But thank you for watching. Subscribe if you like my opinions or if you just want to hear more controversial shit. Have a great rest of your day, guys.
I stare at the populace in prayer.